Welcome to Spaces and Shadows. This is a 911 Lone Star fanfiction titled Underwater, following the story of Carlos and TK's honeymoon in Hawaii as they face a natural disaster. This audio features mature and LGBTQ+ themes with sound effects that may be unsettling for certain listeners. The text may be found in my archive of our own profile. Link is in the description. We made it, TK said, sipping from the straw of his non-alcoholic drink. We made it. Cheers, babe. Carlos echoed after TK and raised his glass for a toast. The bright, cloudless afternoon sun shined through a small hole on the sunbrella that was covering TK and Carlos's beach chair. TK was annoyed. Babe, we got to move to another one. There's a hole in this umbrella. TK starts packing up his beach bag. TK, it's fine. Just move your chair a little. Carlos already made himself comfortable, reluctant to move. No, babe, it's our honeymoon and everything has to be perfect. TK turned to see Carlos still sitting in his chair. Carlos pouted and TK giggled. Babe, stop doing that. Doing what? Carlos pretends to be confused. Oh, you mean my famous Carlos cow eyes? Carlos said as he leaned closer to TK. TK laughed and put his right hand on Carlos's face. Yeah, you're gonna wreck me again. A light vibration could be felt from the sand. Baby, you feel that? Carlos's face turned. His cop senses were tingling. Something didn't felt right. I can always feel you from your soulful eyes, babe. TK's thumb was rubbing Carlos's face, unaware of the situation that was about to unfold. No, baby, I'm serious. I think it's an earthquake. Carlos's serious tone of voice wiped the smile off TK's face. What? TK said. He started noticing the beach table was shaking, the spoons on their cocktails clinging against the glass. TK felt it this time. He looked at Carlos and then into the crowd. There was no panic, but the crowd was concerned. It went on for several seconds and then it stopped. Huh, I guess it's just an airplane flying really low to us, TK said, trying to make sense of the situation. TK, planes don't fly over this side of the island. Some rumbling sound could be heard. The ground started shaking hard enough for the cocktails to fall over the beach table. The crowd started screaming. A heavy banner hanging from the ceiling in the nearby open-air drinks bar fell. A standing speaker monitor on a tripod toppled over a man. TK ran over and pulled the monitor away from the man's chest. Sir, are you okay? Do you feel any pain? TK had to shout. The noise was too loud.
No, I'm okay. Thank you.
TK helped the man stand up. Glasses were falling off the shelves, lights were flickering, and the patrons were holding on to anything sturdy to ground themselves. TK! Carlos came running towards TK. It was hard to keep his balance running across the sand. He reached for TK and pulled him under a table. A minute went by and the tremors stopped. The music stopped. A screeching sound could be heard before a man speaks through the microphone.
Ladies and gentlemen, I think we've just experienced an earthquake. If you're hurt, please get yourself checked out at the first aid center just right by the bar. For your safety, we advise you to stay out of the water until we can get an all clear from the beach guard. At any point of time, if you...
The MC was interrupted by a tsunami warning. The water receded and people could be heard shouting to get off the beach. The siren prompted Carlos and TK to look at each other with panic in their eyes. "Babe," TK said, catching his breath. "We're gonna be fine." Carlos held onto TK's face with both hands and then stood up to yell the loudest his lungs would give. "Everybody get off the beach! Right now! Get off now!" Chaos erupted. There was a stampede, everything was getting knocked over, and people were running into each other. Carlos pulled TK and started running towards the main street. "We got to get to high ground!" Carlos looked around to find their best option. "There!" Carlos pointed at a 5-story building about 2 blocks away. It was the tallest in their immediate vicinity. TK turned to have a quick look at the situation behind them. Everyone was running in the same direction. His eyes then focused on the horizon further ahead, and his pupils dilated. A tall wave was approaching. "Babe! The wave is coming! The wave is coming!" TK shouted in between his breath while he was running. What? What? As Carlos turned to see what was coming, he tripped over a fallen pole and hurt his ankle. He was in pain. TK took a knee beside Carlos and checked his ankle. "TK, I'm not gonna make it. You gotta go. You gotta run," Carlos said. "I'm not leaving you," TK said. "TK, run and don't look back. Go! Go!" Carlos said. "I'm not leaving my husband behind," TK said as he puts Carlos' arm across his shoulders and pulls him up. Carlos gave a loud groan and tried to hop as fast as he could. After several feet forward, Carlos stopped. "Babe, what are you doing? Come on!" TK's desperate voice was heartbreaking. He looked into Carlos' watery eyes and knew Carlos was going to say something that he wouldn't want to hear. Baby, listen to me. You gotta go. I'm only slowing you down," Carlos said while he shook his head. "The wave is approaching. Its height was taller than anticipated. People were getting caught and swept away. I said I'm not giving up on my husband, so don't you dare give up on me now." TK firemen lifted Carlos and ran several feet ahead through an open door to the reception lobby of a 3-story resort. TK carried Carlos as he climbed up the flight of stairs as fast as he could, as the water broke the windows and doors right behind them. They continued to make their way to the 3rd floor as the water slowly rises to the 2nd floor. TK put Carlos down along the hallway and said, "Baby, listen to me. I'm gonna leave you here for a minute, and I'm gonna find us a way up to the roof." TK said and bolted off before Carlos could say anything. TK ran from one end to the other of the straight, windowless hallway with rooms on either sides, searching for a staircase that could lead to the roof. He eventually found a ladder that could be the way out. TK climbed up and tried to open a hatch, but it seemed to be sealed shut. TK gave several hits with his elbow to no avail. He jumped right back down and looked around for anything that he could use to break it open.
TK! The water's rising!
Carlos could be heard shouting from across the hallway. TK ran back towards Carlos and tried opening several doors along the way, but they were all locked.
Anybody in here? Hey! The water's rising, we need help! Hey! Anybody in here?
Baby, I'm gonna find us a way out. TK tries to assure Carlos.
I just need something to break the hatch. Or we could just swim towards the lobby and then maybe swim. TK.
Carlos interrupted.
I won't be able to climb that ladder. And the lobby's already flooded.
TK had his hands over his head, and then they looked at each other without saying a word more and started tearing up. TK sat beside Carlos and put his head on Carlos's shoulder.
I'm sorry, baby. It was my idea to come here.
TK's voice was dry, soft, but audible.
Baby, this isn't your fault. Nobody could have known this would happen.
Carlos's voice was cracking. The lights went out. The emergency lights lit up and cast a soft beam along the hallway. Carlos and TK stayed seated with their legs stretched out, their backs against the wall. They could feel running water underneath their legs, and their beach shorts were soaked. The water had rose to the 3rd floor where they're at.
Baby, if we don't make it out here, Carlos, I love you, baby, and I always will.
TK interrupted Carlos and kissed him in the lips. Is this a goodbye kiss? Because it certainly felt like it. Trapped and hopeless was not something that the both of them were not familiar with. TK held onto Carlos' hand and rested his head on Carlos' shoulder. And Carlos had his mouth on TK's head while tears continued to run down his face.
TK, don't give up, my boy.
A familiar voice rang in TK's head.
Mom?
TK whispered to himself. He rubbed his eyes, stood up and started banging on the door to the room right in front of them. The door was not possible to break in. The water rose quickly to the level of their hips. At the corner of TK's eyes, he saw a floating broomstick. He grabbed it, pulled Carlos and made their way to the other end of the hallway where the ladder leading to the roof was. The water continued rising and they could almost start swimming. They moved as fast as they could and reached the dimly lit end of the hallway. At this point, the ladder was almost unnecessary as they were floating towards the ceiling. Carlos watched as TK desperately tried to break the hatch with the broomstick, putting as much force as his tired arms could. He tried so hard that the broomstick broke into 2 pieces.
There's got to be another way out!
TK dove into the water and came back up several times to take a quick breath. Carlos got a hold of TK's face the next time he popped up. The water was rising close to the roof.
TK, baby, it's okay. It's okay,
Carlos said as he tried to smile amidst the disaster.
Baby, I'm sorry, I tried.
TK's voice was breaking. Carlos put a hand on TK's face and said,
I just want you to know that I love you and I will live through every moment we shared just to come back here again.
Carlos was calm and tearing. I love you, baby, and I have no regrets. Thank you for building a home with me, TK said calmly. Goodbye, baby. They both take several deep breaths to prepare themselves as the water was close to the ceiling. They kissed mouth to mouth as they fully submerged into the water. They held on to each other for as long as they could, and then broke apart. It was dark underwater, but they could still see each other from the beam of the emergency light that pierced through the water. TK sees bubbles coming out of Carlos's mouth as Carlos loses his last breath, slowly becoming motionless. Flashbacks of their journey from strangers to friends to lovers to fiancés and then husbands ran through the both of their heads in chronological order. Amidst the sense of fear, there was also a sense of calm and happiness. They were grateful to have found each other, and there was no doubt that they would do this all over again. TK, don't give up. Hold on, my boy. Mummy's coming. This time, TK was sure of it. He heard his mom's voice reverb through his head, but it was clear. TK looked around and noticed the wall was cracking. He swims forward and tries to break the walls with his bare fist underwater. With the grace of Gwyn, the walls caved after some large debris hit the wall from the outside. The water gushed out to level itself with the flood outside. The water must be receding. TK was pulled through the hole by the current. He emerged from the water on the outside and breathed. Floating down the rapids as he attempted to grab on anything to anchor himself. He eventually grabbed onto a tree and panned his head around to look for any signs of his husband. Cars, bodies, and debris floated by the receding water. The flood was probably 2.5 stories at this time.
Carlos! 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 Carlos!
TK looks at the caved wall where he emerged from. Come on, baby, come on. Come on. Come on, baby. Carlos emerged from the water and sucked all the air in that he could. He was disoriented and got struck by a chunk of debris slowly floating away from his point of emergence.
Carlos! Hang on, baby!
TK lets go of the tree and tries to swim towards Carlos. It was a challenge in these rough waters, but that didn't stop TK from reaching his beloved husband. He grabbed Carlos's hand and pulled himself closer to him and said, I got you, baby. I got you, baby. I got you, baby. Carlos was breathless and disoriented. They floated several blocks down and the current was slowing. As they approached a roof of a building, several survivors signaled for TK and Carlos to swim towards them. With the remaining strength that TK has, he held on to Carlos as they tried to swim towards the survivors. They reached and pulled TK and Carlos out of the water and laid them next to each other. As TK and Carlos catch their breath, they locked their eyes at each other, and Carlos reached for TK's hand.
You saved me, baby.
Carlos said under his breath.
No, I think my mom did.
TK said, rolling over to Carlos for a cuddle.
You both did. Thank you for not giving up on me. When I broke my ankle, baby, I wouldn't be breathing right now if it weren't for you.
Carlos said, because Carlos Reyes, you are my home, and it will never be home without you. TK sat up as he said that. The sun is setting. The orange sun rays showered TK's face. Carlos had both his hands on TK's face and said, Tyler Kennedy, loving you was the best decision I've made in my life. I love you. Carlos leaned in for a kiss. We have come to the end of this story. Thank you for listening, and I hope you enjoyed it. Please leave a comment, like, subscribe, or share. Let me know if you would like to have more of these, and I'm available to chat anything about 911 and 911 Lone Star on Twitter at Spaces and Shadows. That is spelled SPACESNSHADOWS. Take care and be kind to one another. I'll see you guys soon.